Hello, welcome to the OSCH podcast with me, Romana Jabeen, as your host. This series is a 4-episode journey through cultures in South Asia. I will focus on the language, food, traditions and fashion of Bangladesh, India and Pakistan in each episode. So stay with us on this short trip, which is full of history and fun facts. Enjoy! For our first episode, I'll be focusing on languages. Languages spoken in Bangladesh, India and Pakistan. Did you know that in Bangladesh, 98% of the population speak Bengali, containing loan words from English, Portuguese, Arabic, Persian and Hindi? Fun fact, it actually has 228 million speakers, and it's the second most widely spoken of the 22 scheduled languages of India behind Hindi. It's also the 7th most spoken language in the world. It's part of the Eastern Indo-Aryan languages in South Asia, which developed through 10th to the 13th century. The language itself, Bengali Language Implementation Act 1987, made it mandatory in Bangladesh to use Bengali in all government affairs except for foreign relations. Bengali has developed over the course of 1,300 years. Bengal was a hub for Sanskrit lit and Hindu priests, and has evolved into a distinct language that we now call Bengali. Modern literature was formed during 19th century and 20th century based on areas and dialect across Bangladesh. In 1948, the government of Pakistan tried to make Urdu the sole language of Pakistan, but with the rise of the Bengali language movement, it also became a state language in Pakistan for it to be spoken. Moving on to Urdu, which you might associate with Pakistan. However, fun fact, Urdu has 70 million native speakers, and 50.7 million of those speakers are actually from India, with only 16 million from Pakistan, which means that there are actually more Urdu speakers in India than there are in Pakistan. It's also the 21st most spoken language in the world. Urdu is also known as Lashkari, and it is an Indo-Aryan language, as well as Hindi and Bengali. Although many people think it sounds like Hindi, and there are exceptions such as certain vocabulary words, phrases and tones when speaking. However, Urdu was developed in the 11th century in the Delhi Sultanate. The origin of the name Urdu is from the Chagatai language for army, Urdu. It was originally used as a military language, but over time it developed into a formal language to show politeness and respect, similar to the language structure of French. Urdu uses the Perso-Arabic alphabet and relies on Persian vocabulary as well as Arabic and Hindi. Relations to the Persian language differences from Urdu is that it has 5 additional letters: te, re, de, he, se. Similarities is that it's also written right to left. The term Urdu was coined in 1780 by Ghulam Hamdani, a poet. However, this began the alienation of the two major cultures and contributed to the divide of India and Pakistan. Moving on to Hindi, which is largely spoken in India. Hindi is also an Indo-Aryan language with over 322 million speakers of Hindi. It is an official language in 9 states and 3 union territories, and one of the 22 scheduled languages of the Republic of India. There are many different types of Hindi according to dialects such as Awadhi and Bhojpuri, or even Fiji Hindi, only spoken in Fiji. We also have Caribbean Hindi, which is spoken in Trinidad, Tobago, Guyana and Suriname. Both Hindi and Urdu share a common colloquial base. Fun fact, Hindi is actually the 4th most spoken language after Spanish, Mandarin and English. Hindi was borrowed from the classical Persian meaning belonging to Hind, i.e. India. To trace it back further, it came from Old Persian and Sanskrit, referring to Indus, meaning for the river, and India for the land of the river. All Hindi took loan words from Persian and Arabic, leading to the development of Hindustan. The growing importance of identity differentiated many languages, for example Urdu and Bengali, which linked their associations with their religion and culture and countries. In 1954, the government of India set up a committee to prepare Hindi to bring in uniformity and grammar in writing and reading. It was released in 1958, a basic grammar of modern Hindi. On the 14th of September 1949 is when Hindi was seen as the official language of India, and it is now known as Hindi Day. I just want to share some common words between all of these languages. Assalamu alaikum, which means hello. Dawat, which means invite. Pani, which means water. Ghusl, which means bath. Appu, which means dad. Bhaiya, which means brother. Hala, which means maternal aunt. Puppo, which means paternal aunt. Chacha, which means paternal uncle. Dua, which means prayer. Batti, which means light. And mirch, which means chili. What I love about these common words is that it just shows that although we have different cultures, religions, countries, languages, we do have common words that unite our languages. For example, if you were to speak Hindi, Urdu or Bengali, we would understand some of the words and sentences when speaking it to each other, which I think is beautiful. With that being said, next week we'll be looking at the different traditions across these cultures. So make sure to tune in next time. I have been your host, Romana Jabeen, on the OSCH podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great week, day, evening, night, and take care. Stay safe.